Hey guys, welcome to episode 23 of the Weekly Update, the series where I talk about the paddles that I hit throughout the week. Now, this week I didn't hit too many paddles, mainly because I was spending time getting ready for the Compton True Form 4 review. Now, I didn't release that video on this channel, but instead I did a partnership with Pickleball Central. So if you do want to check out that video, check it out at the Pickleball Central YouTube page. But in terms of what we're going to be covering for this week's episode, we'll be talking about the reapproval of the Luzz Cannon. Let's get to it. All right, let's talk about the Luzz Cannon. So this was actually the original one that came out, I want to say a few months ago, before it was delisted and removed from the approved list. Now, this is an elongated J3 style paddle, so it is thermoform and it does have a second foam layer that goes around the perimeter. Now, we talked about the Cannon in a previous video, but just to recap, these play really similarly to the Yola Gen 3 style paddle. So they have a really similar feel at impact, that's really hollow feeling, and they also have that same hollow sound when you're hitting with it. I would say it sounds and feels a lot similar to a Yola mod. But I would say that the firepower isn't quite there. So this is what I was experiencing, what other people were saying as well when I was hitting with it. But it sounded like I would hit the ball harder than I actually did. So while the sound was loud when I would go for drives, the actual speed and velocity of the ball didn't really match the sound. So I would actually say that the firepower level is actually a step below the Yola Pro Force. Now, the reason the Cannon became such an infamous paddle was because Rafa from Pickleball Tech Dude did a video comparing the side-by-side playtest of his Luzz Cannon versus a Yola mod. Now, in Rafa's video, he found his Luzz Cannon to have very similar firepower levels to his Yola mod. Now, this is a bit different from my experience, but I think this is likely due to a quality control issue. With these Gen 3 style paddles, when the core does break down and get compromised, it can cause the ball to shoot off a lot harder. Now, if there isn't good quality control from the factory, sometimes these paddles can be shipped pre-crushed, or the core can come compromised where it breaks in a lot quicker. I'm not saying that either of us is wrong. I just think that his could have potentially broken quicker than mine did. So mine hasn't broken in, but that's because I hadn't put in too much time with it. But likely his core was compromised, and that's why I think we don't have similar numbers between us. Now, after posting that video, Rafa did give a lot of attention to the Luzz paddle, where the governing body started looking more closely at Luzz. And that's when they realized that the Cannon was never formally submitted for approval. Instead, what Luzz had done was that they had gotten a previous paddle approved and passed, and they were trying to sneak in the Cannon through similarity testing, even though those two paddles had completely different constructions and are completely different paddles. Now, because of that, that's why the governing bodies decided to crack down on Luzz and have their paddles removed. Now, flash forward to a couple weeks ago, the Cannon got reapproved again, and this is their new updated version that is now PB Core certified and approved. I got to have some time with this, and to be honest, it's basically the same thing as the old one in terms of its numbers. The swing weights were, in that 117 to 119 range, and then twist weights are in that 6.3 to 6.4 range. So really similar numbers between the two. And as for playability, if anything, I thought my newer version actually hit a bit harder than the older one. They still have that same hollow feedback that's really similar to the Yola Gen 3 style paddles, and the firepower levels are basically identical, with just the new one hitting a little bit harder. Now, the thing to remember is that the Cannon wasn't removed from the approved list because it failed PB Core or any of the other USAP tests. It failed because it was trying to sneak in through USAP similarity testing. So to me, it kind of makes sense that this newer version is the same as the previous version, because I want to say neither of them really failed the testing in the first place. And if I think about it, at least for the models I have, there are more powerful legal paddles on the market. For example, the Body Helix Flick F1, the Rhombus Ripple V2, and even the Yola Pro 4s. Those are all approved, and I think that they have more firepower compared to the Luzz Cannon. And that's the thing about these Gen 3 style paddles. It's when the core gets crushed and compromised, that's when they start to have uncontrollable levels of power. But at least for the models that I have, and potentially the ones that were set in for testing, I didn't find the power to be uncontrollable, which is likely due to these paddles having more intact and healthy cores. However, this does raise some durability concerns because we're unsure how quickly and how often these cores will break, given that we have seen a high track record of breaking in with these gesture style paddles. But for what these two models I have are as of now, and what I will say about them in my experience, is that with limited playtime, I would say that these are like toned down Yola mods. They don't have the firepower level of them. They feel really similar to them, but in terms of the firepower, it's still a step below the Yola Pro Force. Now, one last thing about the Cannon paddles is that they are significantly cheaper than the Yola paddles. These go for $109, and that drops them even lower after a discount code. So if you did want something that was a lot more toned down in terms of the graphics, and if you maybe want a little bit less power, I definitely think this is a budget version of the Yola paddles that's also approved for tournament play. So if that's something you're interested in, it might be worth checking out. But anyways, guys, that's it for this week's episode of the Weekly Update. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and let me know what you think down in the comments below. All right, catch you guys next week.